The snowfall was thick as milk, but I wasn't thinking about the ice. The road shimmered under dim streetlights, growing slicker with each mile. I was speeding, feeling the tires slip, but I didn't slow down. Linda sat beside me, and in the back seat, Carrie slept peacefully. It seemed like an ordinary evening, a calm night, except it was the last time I would ever think of my life as normal. I don't even remember why we were in such a hurry. Some trivial reason I would later forget, yet it became the cause of our destruction. Suddenly, like a shadow flickering in the periphery, another car appeared from the right, pulling out from an intersection. At first, I didn't register it as a threat. It was like one of those nightmares where you wake up, but don't realize the horror has only just begun. I should have hit the brakes, but I didn't. I pressed the gas. That moment, I became part of the storm, part of its merciless, frozen hunger. My instincts shut down, and I couldn't stop. I hoped to make it through, but hope is a fool's comfort. The sound of shattering glass, metal screaming against metal. Linda and Carrie's terrified cries, but none of it could drown out the sickening impact that slammed into my gut. It didn't feel like hitting another vehicle. It felt like colliding with something alive, something that shouldn't exist. Our car spun. I was thrown sideways like a rag doll. Glass pierced my arm, and a sharp, wet pain surged through me, like something vital was being ripped away. I gasped as my vision blurred, but through the shards and snowfall, I saw him, the driver of the other car. His face, crushed against the shattered windshield, was frozen in an expression of pure horror. He was alive, but only barely. His family wasn't so lucky. Two small bodies lay still in the back seat, crumpled like discarded dolls. He locked eyes with me, his blood-covered mouth moving. A whisper, then a rasp, then a broken, breathless voice. "You killed them." His pain twisted into something darker, something hungry. His words didn't just echo in my ears. They buried themselves inside me, like ice-cold fingers pressing into my chest. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. This was worse than a nightmare, because it was real. I felt something heavy inside me, something freezing, my soul rejecting the truth. But he was right. I killed them. The hospital was a haze. I drifted in and out of consciousness, the smell of antiseptic and death filling my lungs. Linda and Carrie had survived the crash, but I had lost my arm. At first I didn't care. Maybe it was punishment. Maybe it was justice. But then the doctors told me the news. They had found a match for a transplant. The other driver's arm. I should have refused. I should have screamed. But I was too weak, too lost in my own grief. I let them take it. I let them sew his arm onto me. And the moment I woke up from surgery, I knew I had made a terrible mistake. At first, it was subtle. A twitch, a flicker of movement when I wasn't trying to move. At night, I'd wake up to the sensation of fingers clenching into my flesh, gripping me from the inside out. Sometimes I'd glance down and see my hand moving on its own, curling into a fist as if trying to strangle the air itself. The worst part was the cold, not just any cold. A deep, gnawing, grave soil cold. It crept up my arm, into my chest, like something rotten and unfinished was pulling me into the earth. Then came the nights. I'd wake to the feeling of something pulling me by the wrist, not violently, almost gently, like a father guiding his child. But the hand that gripped me was not mine. I tried to ignore it, tried to tell myself it was just in my head, but he wasn't done with me. 6 months passed. The nightmares dulled, but the feeling never left. That night we were at the cafe. Linda and Carrie sat outside, chatting, laughing. Everything seemed normal, but I knew he was still there, watching. "Dad, can we go with Mom to the bank?" Carrie asked, bouncing on her heels. Linda grabbed the deposit bag and smiled. "I'll be quick." I nodded, fishing out my truck keys. "I'll warm up the engine." She kissed my cheek through the window before heading off. I watched them go, then reached for the gear shift. And then, the hand moved. I felt the cold surge up my arm, the fingers tightening around the wheel. My foot pressed down on the gas. "No!" I tried to stop, tried to pull back, but it was him. I wasn't driving anymore. He was. I fought. I screamed, but my body was not my own. The truck lurched forward. The headlights flooded the street. And there they were, Linda and Carrie, walking, smiling, completely unaware. The truck roared toward them. I yanked at the wheel, but my fingers refused to let go. Linda's head turned. Her eyes met mine. And then, impact. Their bodies disappeared beneath the steel. My world shattered. The truck spun out of control, smashing into the side of the cafe. The windshield exploded, and I was thrown into the darkness. For a moment, I thought I was dead. But then I heard him, a voice, whispering from inside the mangled ruin of my own body. Software satisfied. Now you know how it feels. And then, nothing.